Hello everyone. Nice to see you on this beautiful day. Uh, welcome to my stream. Welcome to the sort of a celebration stream. Um, Hopefully, if you're here, you know what's new. I've shared it on social networks. Shared it on um, shared it on my YouTube channel. So yeah, I've become DevRel at Replay.io, and I'm super excited about this. And I just can't wait to share all the excitement with you. Plus, I thought this would be a nice opportunity to do a little Q&A, but also to sort of showcase what's going on with Replay.io and what it is and how it can help you. Because how if it feels like a big jump, like a big transition from like being a Cypress ambassador and consultant and stuff like that to going to doing DevRel at Replay.io, it may seem like it's a big jump, but it actually is a very logical step, at least in my view, and I feel like this is sort of meant to be, and I really feel like it's a really good fit, and it fits into what I've been doing, but also it fits into what you might be doing as a tester or as a front-end developer, and I really want to show you how that works. So yeah, thanks for everyone joining in the chat, and thanks for the lovely congrats messages. Thank you, Igor, and thank you, Thomas. That's very lovely from you. I am excited, so I'm glad that that brings a smile to your face as well. so so yeah, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to ask. I'll be sort of switching between demoing what Replay.io is and answering any questions that might pop up. And yeah, special shout out and hi to Cecilia, who has been in Replay and who I met last year. She's a very lovely person now working with Ionic. If you don't know her, if you don't follow her on Twitter, then definitely do that. Cecilia Creates, I think it's your handle, right? Feel free to drop it in chat. Definitely someone you should follow. All right, so let's jump into it. I have my screen share ready ready over here, but I haven't opened anything. So let's do that. Let's open Replay and show you what it's all about. So you know what? Actually, let me open a new browser window first, and I'm going to show you Replay.io's homepage, sort of a landing page that shows what Replay.io is capable of and what it actually is. So there are many ways how to define what the tool does and how it's useful, and it's really like the easiest way to do that is to demonstrate that. But if we were to sort of go with a very broad definition, it is a browser. It's a browser with very special capabilities, very special dev tools that can help you out when you want to debug your application, or when you want to debug your flaky tests. And that's where the transition comes in. I've been doing testing, I've been talking about how to create tests, but I haven't been talking about how to debug tests, although I had a talk about, what was it? It was about like 8 common mistakes. So some patterns and anti-patterns that you might have come across when writing tests, and I wrote about those. But debugging is something that takes a big part of testers' life and also of developers' life. So this tool, I think it's kind of amazing. So yeah, it is a browser which you can download, and the very simplest use case you can use it for is to use it like a browser. So I'm going to open a new tab, and I And what I can do is not only to use it as a browser that would probably be a little bit of an overkill, but a browser that can record stuff for you. So here at the top, there's a record button, which when I hit it, replay starts recording. So what I'll do, I'll navigate to a page, and I have this little application, sort of a to-do app or a things clone app, where I can add a to-do. And when I do that, you'll see that it has created a new item, but there is something weird going on there. The to-do is actually checked off, which is not something you want from a to-do app. So what I did here, essentially, I have recorded a bug. So if you want to reproduce a bug and you have your scenarios, you can use replay browser for that. And what you get when you record that, you'll get this nice recording. So I'm going to title it, let's call it things bug. And here you can see that there are some options. Only I can view this, or I can go ahead and share it within the team, but we'll get to that. Or I can make it even make it public. You know what? Let's make it public. You can actually see that potentially sensitive data from 6 domains. Okay, well, maybe I will not make it public right now. I don't know what that potentially sensitive data might be, but that's the thing with potentially sensitive data. So I rather not share it right now, but I encourage you to go ahead, download Replay Browser and try it out. So, all right, so I'll save my recording, and now it's processing, and in a couple of seconds I will have my recording available. Now this is not a video recording, although it has a video inside it. This is actually a recording of so much more. That's why it takes a little while to load, because the amount of information that's saved within this recording is huge, right? So let me make this a little bit, maybe a little bit bigger. Can I? Here we go. All right. So now you can see the recording. Now you see what I have done, right? And I can play it, and it will play like a video, right? I open my my page. Oh, I actually have recorded the replay as well. I guess the order of the actions should be different. I'm still learning as well. So here's the Things app, and you can see my cursor moving around, and then I typed in the to-do and clicked on enter, and then I moved my cursor around a little bit more. So obviously we have the video, but as you can see on the left panel, we have all of the actions. So this is something similar to what you might get in tools like Cypress or Playwright with the trace viewer. You can see all of the interactions that were happening on the application, but the difference is now that I'm doing that manually. So you can create that even without running a test. You can just go ahead and test things manually and maybe reproduce a bug manually. So this is like the simple view of what I have done. And now on the top right corner, we have a couple of options. Now I can share this with anyone. So if I'm a product owner, or if I am a tester, I can share this recording, and I can just maybe go ahead and add a comment. So let's add a comment like this. Okay. To-do item is completed. Should be unchecked, right? So this would make for a really nice bug report. We have the video, we have the actions, and we can add comments, and we can share all this with anyone. So if I share this, they can open that and view everything that's going on. Now, here we have another panel, and this is where the real magic happens. We have the DevTools. So if you're working with DevTools, you're probably familiar with what they do, that you have your console, your elements panel, and you get all these things here as well. So you can examine different elements. You have inspect element viewer, so you can select an element on page. You can see console outputs, and you can see some information about what has been going on. And then you can jump to any point of the application. I guess this is not very visible right at the moment, but I can jump to the moment where I clicked on the input. I can jump to the moment where I clicked on the O, or when I clicked on the enter, and you can see this timeline sort of moving around, right? But I still haven't gotten to the best part, because we have the interactions recorded, but if I hover over this click, I can go ahead and jump to code. So when I do that, what happens is I'm taken right inside the code that was executed. So I can see that here's an on change listener, and it's changing target value of some element. So this E is for the element. So I can see how this input element is handled. So when I type something into that, there are some changes that are going on. Now, I see that there are no source map found, so this code is a little bit of a mess. So the thing here is I'm working with the version of application which I did not intend it to be working in. If I were to add the correct one, I would obviously have this code a little bit tidied up, and I could see more of what's happening. But we can get to that. We can get to that later. The point I was trying to make was that I can just jump to the code and jump into the source code and see what was happening at the time when I was interacting with my application. Now, the really cool thing about this is, and now I'm sort of considering if I should jump to the other version of the app, but let's keep that for a little moment. The really cool thing about this is that this code is not only like the code that's being executed, it's actually interactive. And you can see that when I hover over different parts of my code, and I can click on this plus button, and we can see like how many times this code was executed. It's indicated by this number, but also now it's indicated with these different logs in here. So what I can do now, actually let me do that on the one line below, is I can console log anything. I can console log something like hello, and that will be printed out over here. Well, that's not very useful. Let's go ahead and try to print out this target value, and we can see that change over time. So let's do target value, and if I did everything correctly, probably looks like I didn't. I should be able to see the target value, so maybe I should do that on the line above the value. Let's see. Are we going to see? Oh yeah, okay. I had it right the first time. So you can see that this onChange listener, which will listen to every keystroke we make on that input and calls a function, we can see what the value of that input was. So when we hit T, it was T, and then we started typing to, do, etc. And what this enables me to do is to jump to the exact point where that key was hit and see what was going on, right? So I can examine my application code. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned, we have the elements panel, of course, but I haven't mentioned the network panel. So this is like exactly the same thing as we have, for example, in a Cypress timeline, where we can see all of the network communication, all of the API calls being made, or all of the resources that are being loaded. So all that information, all the DOM snapshot and everything is available here. And yeah, that's pretty useful. Now, why am I talking about Cypress tests and testing in general when we have so far showcased just like the manual replication of a bug? Well, the reason is because if you remember at the beginning I said this is a browser. So since it is a browser, what you can do is you can use it as a browser for your test automation. So you can integrate it as any other browser in Cypress or Playwright. There's WebDriver IO as well. And I think I'm forgetting one more. I think there's Jest integration, although I don't really have too much knowledge around that one. So don't know how that works in detail, but I'll learn. And let's jump into that. Let's see how that works. So I actually have a bunch of recordings. Oh, you know what? I have an interesting case here, which I wanted to show you as well. Let me just quickly. I made this demo recently on a conference while I was doing some live coding. So let me show you this. And yeah. And I had this mini application. Here we go. Secret number. It was called secret number. So let me open that. And yeah, this is the page. Very, very sophisticated. This page contains a hidden number. That's about it. And I can refresh that and it still says the same. So not much happening in here. But if I look into the source code of this secret number HTML, what I can see the message, this page contains a hidden number, and then I can see that there's a script that's being loaded, right? So if I go ahead and take a look into that script, I'll see that there's a generate number function, which will just generate a number between 0 and 100. And that will get assigned to this constant. But this constant is never used, so we never get to see what the secret number is, or even, if we don't like console log it out, then we are just basically unable to see the hidden number, or at least I don't know of a good way how to see that. However, I made a recording, very aptly named Untitled, which reveals this number, and there's a fly flying around in here. That's distracting me quite a lot. And so what I did in this recording, I opened the app just as I did a moment before, and I refreshed it a couple of times. And then I have taken a look into the app.js file and have added this print statement into this and print out the hidden number constant. And now I can actually see what the hidden number was each time I refresh the application. So what replay.io does is that it reveals information which would normally not be very much available to you. And that becomes incredibly useful, especially if you're dealing with internal state of the application. It works very well with React applications. So if you have like Redux or some other state manager, you can take a look into that and see how it was changing. And sometimes when you run into different timing issues where something just raise conditions and just happens before something else should be happening, this kind of recording can help you go to the exact moment and find out what's been happening, and it can reveal that hidden information. So let's take a look into how to integrate this into your tests. So let me think which project I should work on. Just give me a moment to think about this. And I actually have a couple of little projects that that I have been working on, basically showing showing different flakiness examples. It's still a very new project. I'm working on it still, but I have these different situations, and I actually showed this add to cart in my previous stream. And it's a very nice demonstration of how there can be like two different API calls, and they can come in the wrong order and basically mess up the user experience, because you want to add, for example, you want to add a element or item into your cart, and it's basically impossible because yeah, it's closed. So so yeah, let me just start this application so you can see what's going on in that one. Let's do cd add to cart and then npm run dev, and then I'll also open npx cypress open so you can see the test. And I believe I have made some changes into that test, so let me just revert them. Yeah, let's see this test. All right. So here I have the test, which sort of fixed the flaky tests by just waiting for 1 second and hoping that 1 second will be enough for that test to pass. Now here I have my Cypress. Oh shoot, I opened it in wrong folder. So let's do cd add to cart and do npx cypress open here. That should be better. Let's do npm start testing in Chrome. And here we go. I'm testing my Flamingo Dawn sneakers. So it's like a fake e-commerce site with the detail of a product which I want to add to cart. And usually, if everything goes well, the product is available and I can add it to cart and see the message product was added to cart. And what this page actually does is that it will check for availability. So you can see here's an API endpoint that's checking API check availability. And this, if I go ahead and click on this API call and see the request response, wait, check availability, here we go. This is the first one. So if I go and take a look at the check availability, at the time of the request, the page looks slightly differently. You can see it's not available, and we have a number 0 in here. Now, if I were to, if for some reason this thing would not load soon enough, I would get into a not very nice situation. My test would be failing. In fact, let me demonstrate how that can happen. I have already fixed that issue, but I want it not fixed so you can see that. If I run my test and the check availability does not run in time, what happens is that at the point where I'm clicking on this add to cart button, I don't yet have the information on availability and my test is going to fail. So I click add to cart, and what I get in return from this API endpoint, which calls the add to cart button, is number 400. My test is failing. I cannot add 0 items to the cart. Now I'll get to that in a minute. But usually when you're writing a Cypress test, and something that I have advised quite a lot, and I don't think like it's straight up anti-pattern, so I like don't really take that back. But there are improvements that you can make for this test. Oh, hey Dennis. There are some improvements that you can make, right? So this CY wait, this is like kind of obvious, we don't want this, but what we can do is we can add a intercept and wait for that API check availability, right? And just give it an alias, call it availability, and then wait for that instead. So let's do wait and wait for that, right? So this would be a decent fix for that situation. We don't click on the button before we have response from this endpoint. And that would like reasonably stabilize our test, but it doesn't give us a guarantee that this would not happen to a real user, right? So a real user could also have a slow internet and click on this add to cart button before they see the availability, they see an error, and they're confused into like, why is this happening? So usually what we can do is we can go through the timeline in Cypress. If you're using Playwright, you can go to Trace Viewer and try to find the source of the error by looking at different states of your application and try to figure out what's going on, and hopefully stabilize your test. So that's something you can do, but there is one thing which I think might be kind of problematic in this approach, and that is that we're focusing solely on the test itself. We have found some flakiness, and flakiness is a term that's very much connected to test automation, right? And not so much to the application itself, but somewhere I just recently saw a very nice tweet. If you have a flaky app, it's really hard to write non-flaky tests, something along those lines. And I think that rings true. I have seen many situations where I knew I was writing a good test, but the way the application was doing stuff basically forced me to add a wait or add some other thing to it. And we would say, well, the test is running too fast, so maybe it's just a problem of the test and not a real user. And I would always say, maybe, I don't know, like we don't know. And if we were to look into some logs like Sentry, we would see all kinds of weird stuff that would be happening to our users. So I wasn't like 100% sold on that sentiment and on that sort of closing words like, yeah, this won't happen to a real user because Cypress is just so darn fast and it's not behaving like a real user. Maybe it is. It's just moving there faster. So, all right. So let's see how we can connect these two worlds, right? Cypress has recently released the test replay, which basically brings this experience that you have in your UI, the experience we all love, and what makes writing tests in Cypress really awesome. They have brought that into the cloud, into the dashboard service, which was a really good step on their part. Also, it sort of still has the same problem. We might be able to stabilize the test to create a little less flaky test, but if we have a problem with the application, not the timeline, whether it's here on the test replay, will probably not, will only get you so far, right? It can definitely help you, it will save you a lot of time, but if we want to take a look into the code and why that is causing the flakiness, we would probably have a hard time finding out using this timeline, or even with the trace viewer for that matter. So what can we do? We saw the power of Playwright. We saw the power of replay. So let's connect that to our tests. And the setup is like you would guess how easy that is, because it's basically the same experience you would have with any Cypress plugin. So basically it's npm install to install the package, where it's replay.io/Cypress. So npm install that. And then it's two things. So first one is the support TS, load up the plugin, replay.io Cypress support, and then you go to the Cypress config and add support as well into here. So you would import replay from replay.io Cypress, and then add it to your setup node events. So here's the replay function which I'm importing. It does a little something on the Cypress events and on the configuration. Basically, if we take a look into here, it will register replay browsers. So that's what this does, and probably some other magic which I am not yet aware of. But when we go ahead and decide to run our tests, npx cypress run, and choose the browser, we can choose the same way we could choose Chrome or Firefox. We can choose the replay Chrome. So the principle of how that works goes like this. But the best way of how you can approach this is by defining your CI. So here I have a GitHub a definition file which is triggered not on push, but I can trigger that manually. And what this will do is it's still using the GitHub action from Cypress, pretty much the same experience you would have when interacting with Cypress and GitHub. But what I'm defining is that I want to use replay Chromium. I start my application, I have a different working directory, so there's that. And I do a recording, so I'm actually using both. I'm using Cypress Cloud as well as replay. And then, in addition, we are going to add this replay.io action upload. So after we run our tests and create those recordings using replay Chromium, we upload the results to the cloud. Sorry, let me just for a moment. Okay, my voice is doing weird stuff. Let me just take a sip of water. All right. So yeah, this is the setup. You record your tests and then you upload them. So where do they get uploaded? Well, to replay, right? So if I open my replay browser, if I were to run my test, they would appear here. So I think I've actually saved it into this React things, and I need to take a look whether this is the right recording. I created a little bit of mess of my recordings, and yeah, I guess this is one of them. One of the recordings, but it has like all the attempts are failed. And that doesn't matter actually. That's okay. So yeah, so let's take a look. Now, if you're using Cypress Cloud, or if you're using Cypress for that matter, this experience is very familiar, right? We visit our application and we see our commands here, right? We see the visit, I see the wait, contains add to cart, click, contains blah, 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 assertion failing. Now I can click through these, I can take a look into the details. So as I would in my Cypress test, if I'm using contains, I can see what element was yielded, right? I can see that this is the add to cart button. If I click on it, it will actually highlight the button. So this is nicely interactive. If I hide this left panel, go to the network, I can see all of the network calls. So basically, I have already shown this. So here we have the test definition, we have the test timeline, we can click through that. But again, if I go and take a look at this jump to code, it will take me right into the part of the code that was executed while the test was running. So I can see that when I click on the add to cart button, this function is used, this add to cart function that's over here, and that's going to call the API add to cart request, right? And it has a method of post, has some headers, and has some body. And that body is going to contain a item, a attribute of QTI or quantity, and that's going to have the value of quantity. And if I take a look over here, even if I hover over, I can see that this quantity was 0 at the point of execution. So at the down below, I have my timeline. I can see that I'm right over here. If I hover over this quantity at this point, it had number 0 set. And this number 0 is set by this use state. So we are in a React application. We can see the use state, and we can see that the default value of this quantity state is 0. And that of course changes, right? So I have written this application. I kind of know how to move around. But here's another. Here's the place where that changes. So I have this set quantity function, which mutates the state of our quantity variable, and it's going to be set by whatever is returned by this check availability. So it all kind of falls into place, right? I check how many items, how many sneakers I have in my database, and the server will respond, and I'm going to use that number to set the internal state of that quantity variable. When that happens, this quantity will be changed. If that doesn't happen, it's going to be 0. So this is exactly what's happening with our failed tests, right? We are sending number 0, and our server is responding, hey, you cannot buy 0 sneakers. That doesn't make sense. Now, what the value of this is that when we go ahead and take a look into the code and how different things are handled, we can see that this add to cart is this add to cart function, which is triggered when we click on that button. This is being called by this add to cart component that we have here, and that reacts to on click. So when we click on it, that function is being called. It's pretty simple. Now, what can we do about all this, right? If we go back to our test, well, we have shown one solution, right? We can just go ahead, intercept, wait for that API call, and then click on the button. But this is maybe not the thing we want, because again, our users can experience that as well. So instead, how about we fix the application, right? Because the test is kind of fine, right? The test opens the page, clicks on add to cart button. That's what the user would do. User would not try to intercept an API call and then wait for that. I know this is sort of a cheap argument, but it can happen. Like users don't see this happening. So even if they wait, they may not wait long enough because their internet is slow or whatever. Ideally, what we want is our test to look more like something like this, right? We visit the application, click the button, we should see the message. Now, how to do that? Well, how about we handle the fact that this set availability API call happens and do something on our application. For example, we disable this button that's over here and enable it when we have the availability and we actually have items available. So we can do exactly that. So if I go to my source code, let's go to the source and go into components. I can take a look into this add to cart button. And let's add a property that's going to be called disabled, and it's going to be a Boolean, so either true or false. And if that property is true, then the button should have the attribute of disabled. So we add the disabled attribute. So if this was here, the button would be non-clickable, right? But we set that property to sort of be set with this property, right? So let's do disabled equals disabled. And we, of course, need to pass it into here. So let's do disabled. Here we go. And I'm using Tailwind, so let's change opacity to 50 when the button is disabled, like this. This is why I love Tailwind, like this. To set this up just like this is sweet. All right, so I save my component, and of course I need to go to the parent component, the product detail, and pass on the disabled property and set it to something. So what I want to do is if the quantity that we have here is 0, then we want to disable the button. If the quantity is bigger, like 1, then we should be fine. So let's do quantity, and if it equals to 0, then the disabled property would be set to true. That will go into this component, and that will make it disabled and set the opacity to 50%. So if I save my test now and run it a couple of times, you can see it's now very nicely passing. And for a brief moment, you might see that it has the different opacity. Now, thanks to the fact that we are able to dive into the code and to dive into the exact moment where when the code is being executed, we are not considering ourselves only with the test itself and making the test stable, but we have, as a result, made the application stable. So yeah, I have another example which I'm not sure if I have ran yet. I'm going to prepare a video on this as well, but just wanted to show you this. Let me open another terminal, and I have this Google login, which is not a Google login, it's just like something that resembles a Google login. So let's do Google login npm run dev to open the application, and let's open cd Google login npx cypress open. And let's open Cypress and run the test. All right. So this is another flaky test. It's a very simple one. We visit the application, then we type input into the application, and then we click on next, and that's about it. It's just if we put in the right name, then we are successfully logged in. Not a very secure solution, if you ask me. So let's run that again, and just a couple of times. And here we go. Here we have the error. Now, again, I wanted to make these applications flaky on purpose, so you can see the troubles that we could get in. So here we have a passed test, but it has passed on the 3rd attempt, and those first 2 have failed because we didn't send the whole name into the onto the server. Now, can I go back? For some reason, my timeline is not working at this moment. Let's go back and change the config. So we have retries. Let's change it so we retry on the run mode 2 times, but in open mode I don't want to retry, so let's do 0. All right. Oops. All right, so let me run it a couple of times to get to the error. Will it fail now? Oh, here we go. All right. So you might know this one. It's a super annoying bug that, well, it's not, yeah, it is a bug, but it's a super annoying thing on your tests when you start typing into a input and then for some reason it gets it gets deleted, right? Now this is this is just super annoying when that happens. Now this can happen for various reasons, but usually when that happens, there's something going in the something going on in the application. So, for example, there are some validators that validate the input, right? I've seen this in Angular apps quite a lot of times. Oh, hey, Camille. I've seen this in like material design and Angular apps quite a lot, where I started typing in the input with my test and then it would get deleted. Now, the reason for that is that there's something going on in the background, but from the test, we're not really able to find out what that is. So there might be some indicators. If we use the timeline and we go back, we might be able to find a moment where the application sort of does something, and many times what I would find out would be that if I inspected the application and like what's happening with the elements, I would see that there's some class appearing. Like, I don't know, there's a class error, but there might be class of focused or valid or invalid or touched or something like that. What I would do to stabilize my tests would be to add these into sort of assertions of the test, right? So if I before I start typing input, I would add something like should have class, and then name of the class something like valid or focused, something like this. Not sure if it's, oh yeah, I actually have that class implemented. I wasn't sure. So this will stabilize my test, right? This is good enough, and I have fixed the issue on the test, and I can be kind of sure that this won't fail again. But again, we're focusing just on the test, and maybe we're all overseeing the real issue that's going on here. And let's go back to replay, where I have recorded this test, and I think I should be able to find it. I think this is the one. No, this is product labels test. I should really name it something different than spec. All right, let's see. If it won't work, then we can run it again. It's fly. Let's see. Processing. I may need to record that again. I don't know. But I think I had this working before, so maybe it's just like taking a little while. I've seen some streaming. Oh, session died to an error. Oof. Okay. Well, this gives me an opportunity to go through the whole flow, right? So I have already set up my my pipeline. So I have the Google login thing in here. I have set up all the secrets and everything, and I basically run this on a workflow dispatch. So let's go to the browser and open GitHub and go to the project. So let's do Cypress flakiness debug examples, and go to actions and run this Google login projects. I ran it last month. That was quite a long time ago. So let's do run workflow, and yep, and it's running. Cool. So I have my Cypress run. Let's wait for that to go through everything. We get the checkout, we get the Cypress run, and then we upload replays, and those should appear over here. So let's wait a moment for that to happen, and yeah, and that will give me opportunity to kill this fly, maybe. So I have a swatter here, and it's fly season in here, so I need to deal with this like every day. So let's see if I can get it to arm's reach. Nope, nothing. I don't know. Guess I'll wait. All right, the Cypress run is still running. Almost got it. I don't think I've ever tried to catch a fly during a stream, but it is annoying. By the way, on the video where I announced the joining with replay, there is a fly in one of the shots. So yeah, you can try to find it if you're bored. All right, so we got the Cypress run, we got the upload replays. That has gone successfully, which is great. So let's take a look in here. Let's see, do we have it? I don't see it. Things, bug, start, replay test. Should I refresh that? Upgrade Cypress. Yeah, okay, I think that's it. So let's open this. And see if it's working. If not, I'll probably get back to the team to see what I have missed. But yeah, it's processing. Seems like we're good to go. All right. So here we have the Cypress run, so we can see the test. I'm wondering if it's flaky or not. First name, last name. Oh yeah, it has failed for the first time, and then it was reran, and then it was working. Awesome, that's ideal. So here we can see the passed test and the failed attempt. So that's great. So let's jump into the DevTools and try to see what was happening during the failed one. And if I go to the click, I can see the exact moment when the click, what triggered the click, right? So we see the input, we see that we were typing. No, wait, I don't want to. I wanted to jump into the type code. Yeah, okay. But this code is executing during the typing, right? So when we type, the onChange listener is changing to is looking into the target value and is calling this set email function, which will set the state of this email property, right? Where is that? The email set email, right? By default, it's an empty string, and as we start typing into the input, this email is going to change. So what I can do is I can add a log in here and take a look into what the target value was. So let's target value and add this print statement, and I can actually see the progression of how that was changing. I can see I was typing first name, last name, blah, blah, blah. And then right about here, something happened, right? So if I fast forward to this moment, you can see that it's actually this one, right? So we still had our text here, and then on the very next step, something has changed. Now, this is going to require a little bit more digging into why this has changed. But we see the exact moment of when that happened. Now, what the usual approach would be is to try to look what else is actually changing this this state? Is there anything that's changing our state or removing things from our input? And if we scroll up, you can actually see what I have done to this application, something horrible, right? So I've set the timeout to a various time, and then at some point I'm just going to delete the input value and add a class name and then do a focus. The focus thing is actually something that many applications do, right? You open the app and they want to focus you into the exact place where you should start typing in. Google has that, right? You open Google homepage and you can just start typing. And many other pages have that, so you don't have to like go and manually click on that. They will do this kind of action. They will focus you in. And then you have certain libraries that can do all these things for you, right? So they make sure the value is empty. They make sure that it has proper classes, and then they will focus you on the element. Something similar or something of that sort may happen to your application as well. But during your tests, what might happen is that your input that's already being typed in gets wiped out, which is not fun, right? So, of course, code like this would probably not appear in the application, but seeing what part of your code was being executed and seeing what has been done to it can be quite a huge help in getting to understand why your test is flaky, why your test is failing. Yeah, so I hope this you'll find this useful, and I'll continue on playing with this tool. I'll continue on learning and bringing you new videos and examples and docs and everything. And I see we're kind of reaching the lower point of viewership, so I think it's okay to wrap this up for today. So yeah, thank you very much for coming to this stream. I had a lot of fun. I'm very happy I can show this to you, and I will continue doing so, and hopefully see you next time and see you around. If you have any questions, want to reach out, you can check out my Discord, or you can subscribe to the newsletter, and or just reach out on Twitter or LinkedIn. It's all totally fine. So yeah, thanks again everyone for coming, and see you next time. Bye everyone.